Welcome to Women in AI's India event. So I am Namrata Mukhija and I lead the Women in AI initiatives from India. Women in AI is a non-profit organization that's working towards getting more women involved in artificial intelligence. And with artificial intelligence following into all the industries that are around us, it becomes very important to understand what are the upcoming careers that you can take up and how you can become upskilled to actually get into those roles. Our talk today focuses on some of these career paths and certifications. I am very excited to introduce you to Vikas from Microsoft as the speaker for today's career event. Here's Vikas in his own words. Vikas is a business program manager at Microsoft Australia. Over the years, Vikas has played varied data, BI, AI roles like principal consultant, principal engineer, data engineer, specialist, and architect. In his current role of Azure technical trainer, he enjoys a healthy mix of technology, mentoring, public speaking, and is focused on data, AI, automation, and architectural tracks. Beyond work, Vikas enjoys reading, learning more about cultures and communities around us, cooking and long walks. Welcome, Vikas.
Thanks, Namrata.
Yeah, I would love you to take the stage.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. All right, so it's actually asking me to be the host. I think I'm not the host right now, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, can you share your screen?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. It's oh, now it's working. Okay, yeah, perfect. Can you please confirm if you're able to see my screen now?
It's just starting.
Awesome.
Yeah, now we can see. Thanks, Vikas.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that, Namrata, and everyone from the panel group, and also all the attendees who are joining in and listening in to understand where they can take their career when it comes to data and anything in data space, basically. And obviously, AI is one part of that as well. So I've been briefly introduced already. Thanks a lot again, everyone, for joining in. Today, we are going to talk about how you can kickstart your career. And in specific, we will also talk about some of the Azure data certifications that can actually help you in kickstarting your career. My name is Vikas Rajput. I am a data professional who is currently playing Azure technical trainer role in Microsoft, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. Let's go and talk about a few more things around this. So when it comes to all the different aspects of data and things that I like personally about in data space is first and foremost data engineering, which we will talk about. And also automation is one part which is very close to me, something that I really enjoy talking about and doing as well. And then some parts of AI and ML. The way I look at it, from experience point of view, from interest point of view, and also from the perspective of what works in the industry. And these are some of the things that we will talk about during the session as well. But when it comes to data engineering, my focus remains predominantly onto anything which is to do with SQL or NoSQL platforms. IoT is another area that I'm quite passionate about. I have worked in utilities space, and IoT has become a thing now, but it's been there something which has been going on. And if you think about your watering and metering and electricity and power generation and everything, all these industries have been using sensors for a very long time. IoT is basically more of a branched out version of that, but nonetheless, something that I'm particularly passionate about, and something that ties back very heavily with data engineering. Other than that, spatial technologies is another aspect which is quite interesting and intriguing, and something that hopefully will come in your pathways, in your careers at some point, if it's not already there. If you think about spatial, the first name that probably comes to mind is maps. So if you can think of doing anything with maps in your life, you are already dealing with spatial technologies. And it's again data set, footprints and geospatial footprints and those kind of things. All these bits and pieces, the way you use these spatial footprints and then apply personal data or data about the technologies and data about the companies and marketing events and those kind of things. So you can only imagine the kind of things that can be achieved with that. Other than that, when it comes to data engineering, I look at it from a holistic architecture point of view. My personal perspective of looking at solutioning is risk management. If I'm inheriting a system, I tend to look at it from the perspective of what risks am I introducing when I'm making some decisions, and what are the risks that I'm trying to go away from. And obviously product mindset is something which cuts through almost every single one of these things that we just talked about. Now, the reason I'm talking about all these things is not to go and kind of, qualify, see, this and that or whatever. It's basically to give out a perspective of when you look at data, when you look at it from a career point of view, these are some of the, very minimalistic kind of thought processes which can be triggered up. And in way of me elaborating these a bit more, I'm trying to give a flavor of, what are the possibilities when you start to look into data as a career path, right? Other than that, automation obviously something which I have been quite passionate about and something I have been involved with. If there is anything which can be scripted, it can be automated. So the first and foremost thing, if you can write anything in code, there is a good chance, there is a good possibility that you can automate that as well. And that's how simply I look at it. If there is something that you want executed, try to have that scripted, try to have code generated for it so that you can schedule it, so that you can execute it. All the complexities of, parameterizing it and making it dynamic and things like that, that all starts with a very simple step of generating the code for what you want to produce, right? But nonetheless, obviously, there is DevOps, there is DevSecOps, there is infrastructure as code, there is security as code, there is site reliability engineering. Obviously, that's a different, branch altogether if you start looking at it. But I enjoy cross sectioning it with the data engineering pathways that I have been doing in my own personal life so far. And then lastly is around AI and ML, machine learning and artificial intelligence, something which has been kind of, a bit of a hot talk. And obviously a lot of you probably are already into that quite a lot. Now within that, you would see there are people who actually generate very smart, how do you put it, smart models and algorithms and things like that, who go about doing all these things. And, some of this is available on open GitHub repositories and those kind of things. But then there are people like me as well who actually enjoy more of integrating that in the real world applications, trying to have a tooling built around it so that it can be executed and tested automatically, very, very aggressively, basically building MLOps around it, machine learning operations around it, and have the solution productionized rather than just, something which is there and kind of, just going about testing it locally. So scale, velocity, those are the bits and pieces that I try to throw in when I look at it from AI and ML perspective. I have got certain certifications as well. And obviously, just to call out that, some of these bits and pieces I have done in my own personal life. So what I'm going to talk about is not something which is there just as a pitch. It's something that I preach and something that I have achieved myself as well. So if there is any data cert that's available right now with Microsoft, except for the foundations one, all of that I've already secured up. Other than that, I'm an MCT, a qualified Microsoft certified trainer, and MCSC been there for quite some time. And obviously from product mindset perspective, hold a CSPO as well, which is again, good insight for me. Right. So when it comes to data, when it comes to things that you can do with data and informations that you generate out of it, the idea is not to throw so much data at somebody that, they say, geez, you're a database. But the idea is to basically clarify. The idea is to basically simplify things for the business, for the people, for your audiences, for your customers, for your peers, whatever it is that you have as an audience. The same thought process I will probably go and apply to almost everything that we're going to do and see today. So let's try to practice that right away, and hopefully you get inspired enough to go and achieve that in your certifications and hopefully in your career pathways as well. So we will start with the agenda itself. So we will have a very simple agenda that's there in front of you. So we will talk about literally 3 things. That's it, nothing more. We will talk about why to certify. Then we will talk about some specific data certifications that we have. And then we will also end up with what's next. What are the other pathways? What are the other possibilities that you can take from here and go next from here in your career? Simple as that. 3 points. Why certify? Let's clarify that first. Let's look at some of the Azure data certifications. We will talk about, if I'm not wrong, 5 or 6 different certifications, and then we will wrap it up with what's next. And obviously at the end, if there are any questions, we are trying to keep it very, how to put it, very collaborative. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window, and somebody in the team will be there to help you out. All right. So let's start with the first part of it. Why certify? Now, when you look at certification, it could be quite many different reasons for which you might think of taking certifications. You might already be a working professional, and be it in the data space, be a data developer, database developer, data analyst, or a business analyst, or a BI analyst, or whatever, right? But from there on, you want to go and qualify yourself and really prove to yourself and to the people around you that you've got it. You've got the understanding, you've got the fundamentals in place. And at the same time, I will say this as well. Being certified doesn't mean that you are the go-to expert person, because learning doesn't end anywhere, right? It just keeps on going. In fact, under Satya's leadership, Microsoft calls itself as a learning organization, right? We are always in a learning mode, is the thought process that we literally are seeing and preaching within the organization. So when you look at it from certification point of view, you first have to look at where exactly you are at to begin with, right? And in that, the first step is, probably you are already a working professional who wants to basically prove yourself, and hence to the team around you that, you understand it. You understand the technology, you understand what it takes, you have done it, you have got some experience, or at least you have got the basic fundamentals in place. And certification is a good way to prove it. Another way is, or another reason for you could be that you're just starting. You could be a mom trying to get back, or you could be or you probably are a student who is starting the career, or you also could be a person who has retired from the career, but they just want to start back again. Maybe never been into IT space, never been into data space, never been into AI space, and something that you just want to start with. So starting out in the career, irrespective of where you are in your life, could be another reason. And then trying to get back, this is something which is my personal favorite, because obviously among all the different other options, getting back in action is something which I personally feel takes a lot of courage and a lot of actions on everyone's part. You could be working mom who's trying to get back into career. You could be somebody who has seen a massive or a major accident or an injury or something in their own personal life. Could be physical, could be mental, and trying to get back from there and basically stand up on your feet and get things going and rolling for yourself. So all of these different reasons are are unique challenges in their own regard, right? And you might be somebody who's trying to get back into the driving seat and just basically, take charge of your career from there on. For example, if you're if you're in the first block of taking a shot, then you may not have been, let's say, working with SQL. You may not have been working, let's say, with Python, or you see the reports in front of you, but you don't know how that report gets generated, right? A very simplistic version, everybody who is receiving the report generally say, oh, that number doesn't look good, can you just go and change it, without realizing it's not like an Excel or a Word document that you just go and change it. The fact is there could be a good number of aggregations, there could be a good strong data modeling working behind the screens, there could be a massive change management which get triggered because of one small, can you just change this number to this kind of a thing, right? So having that understanding, having that acumen to be built up, it takes time and effort, and it's unique in their own regards. If you're somebody who's starting out in career, for example, you might look at it from the perspective of, just code, and things get done, right? Hardly the case, actually. If you're looking at a career perspective, for example, especially when you're starting up, I think a lot of focus is more on the collaboration, in understanding each and everyone's perspective, understanding the requirements, talking a lot to the people, and understanding what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, and then get that delivered. It's a classic statement in SDLC, which is Software Development Life Cycle, that you spend 20% effort in coding, 80% is everything else, right? I think having that built, having that understood at the beginning of a career can make a lot of difference. So when you're making a start in your career, these kind of things can help out a lot, and great deal as well. And especially if you think about getting back in action, especially if, let's say, you're a working mom who is trying to get back in action, for example, managing kids, managing the family is probably the toughest job in the world, right? And then from there on, you're trying to get into a career pathway, and you might feel that, yes, that's a good start point, and let's get going. But the fact is, it's been such a massive job for anybody, that getting your head off that is not that easy. From my conversation with a lot of people who I have been personally trying to help and get back in action, the challenge has not been technology. Challenge has been more about how somebody balances what they have been doing previously and not let that interfere from their learning path, right? And I'm saying it with a lot of respect, right? And something, there are times when you have to ignore some things just to kind of keep your focus and keep your effort going in a particular direction. So getting back in action, if I be honest to you, I think doing work in office is a lot easier than managing your home, right? And that's been my personal experience, especially after this COVID situation that we have seen. But nonetheless, the same thing goes for somebody who is trying to get back in action after, let's say, a massive injury, right? I personally have had that experience myself, unfortunately. And there is a lot of mental strain that actually comes with such a massive injury. And if somebody is trying to get back into action from that, it's not just a physical aspect. It's not just, let's just sit down and read this book, 260 pages or 2,600 pages back to back and we are done. No, there is a lot of, mental turmoil that somebody has to deal with and work through, right? And a lot of that, dealing with a lot of that is what takes a lot of effort. So I thought it's something that I just call out, put out in open, and say that, look, you got to kind of sit down for a moment, think about where exactly you're at, and then make a start from there, then make a strategy from there, and then go forward, rather than just say, okay, this is the technology topic and then go and kill it. It will be a good start, but having that completed is the key challenge, right? So what could be your different drivers for certifications? Now, your driver could be that I want to venture into something, and obviously we are going to talk about data technologies here. So let's keep that on the focus, right? You might be working in a retail chain. You might be working in a construction company. You might be working in transportation business. How some of that knowledge from your current career pathways contributes to what you are going to learn in data pathways will help you. If you are somebody who is getting back in action, let's say, mom's returning to work, or somebody returning from financial turmoils or physical or mental injuries or those kind of things, when you look at that, you obviously have been doing a lot with financial data. You have been managing your own finances, for example. How do you apply that knowledge and cross apply that to data technologies? How data technologies help you? If there is a simple list in Excel, what does that tell you, for example? So venturing into certifications could be something to do with, what exactly are you trying to get onto? And generally speaking, venturing, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're coming back in action, I think venturing is the way that I'll look at it. If you are somebody who is already in the space, already working in a company, and that's kind of, taking your knowledge level to a different level altogether, you're basically trying to look at certifications from credibility perspective, right? Let's say you've got like 1 or 2 years of experience in your specific role that you have. You want to understand, how do you prove to your team, to your company, to your manager that you have got the credentials, you've got the skills to take your learning to the next level, right? And I think before anybody else, credibility is something that, we ourselves have to prove to ourselves before we prove to anybody else. And certifications could be a great way of doing it. Personally speaking, for example, the way I look at it, obviously in my current role, there is a lot of certification work that I have to do. But in my previous careers, I've never looked at my company or my management to say, go and do that certification, and then I'll go and do it. If there is something which interests me, I'll go and study about that. And I'll quite kind of, go about and taking that certification, taking that exam. And then it's my way of saying that, yes, I get it. Because a lot of times I'll try to study for it and find out that I think I'm not where I thought I am, and basically go back and, basically work on the foundation. So credibility is a big aspect of certification, at least to me, and something that resonated very heavily with me. So I thought I'll put it out in open as well. And the last bit obviously is around growth. If you have some career goals, it might be something that you have put out there, right? If you have a career development plan, for example, in your career or in your organization, in your current role, maybe you have defined it as part of your growth plan. Now, I do want to say that growth plan, career development plans, and remuneration or salaries are different tangents altogether. I can negotiate my salary without clearing a certification, right? And at the same time, I can not receive my promotion despite clearing all my certifications, right? So all these things are there, which we need to keep in mind. And I think if I be blunt and very direct on this, I think look at certifications from education point of view. Look at certification from what do you want to get out of it point of view, rather than looking at from perspective of growth or titles or salaries or those kind of things. I mean, obviously you would expect money for everything, but I think knowledge is the key bit. If you have got it, you will get rest of the bits easily for yourself. Right. So now let's get into the real crux of the matter. Now we will follow a particular theme here. And this is inspired from 5 Ws, and 5th one is dropped here. So 4 Ws we are dealing with. So first bit is around why. So we talked about that. We also have a when, as in we will try to understand what and how. So we will talk about what certifications we have and how do we go and prepare for them. And then kind of, the fourth bit is around when do you want to sit the exam? What is the right time for you to go and sit the exam? So that is something that I've left out deliberately for you to think and ponder and decide upon, because I think it's in your control on, when you're ready, when you feel you're ready, right? So, but the theme that we will follow through is we will look at different options we have, and we will talk about how you can go about preparing for them, and basically take from there, right? So let's go and make a start with two certifications. So we're going to talk about data engineer and data administrator. But before we do that, let's talk about how these different roles basically stand together, right? So if you think about any data economy, it basically is about data being produced and consumed by various different roles, who could be business roles, who could be different administrative roles, but different roles within the organization and the customers and things like that. So obviously, these are the roles who are producing data, or who are managing the data, or who are basically dealing with the systems which are doing things which are producing data for your consumption. These could be management folks. These could be people or users from different organization units, from different client organization, from different vendor organizations. You would have customers. You will have business analysts. The list is basically endless, right? Operators, administrators, managers, government agencies, all these different roles could have different aspects of data contributing to it. So the first role that comes to mind is data admin. Now, all this data that has been produced, obviously it has to be retained somewhere. It has to be kind of contained in some services, and those services are hopefully highly available, are hopefully secured, are hopefully well performing, and those kind of things, right? So that's where data administrator comes in. The next one is around data engineer. Now, somebody has taken care of the systems. System is working well. It's basically a well-oiled system, and the data is coming through. Everything is working hunky-dory. So how about we go and integrate all these different systems so that data can flow seamlessly across all these different so-called systems? Now, these systems could be databases, these systems could be CRMs, these systems could be cloud-based applications, these systems could be on-premises applications. But basically, you have all these different kind of silos which have information and data of their own context, and you basically need that whole data to flow through in a consistent manner so that somebody can start looking at it, somebody can start analyzing that, and hence leading to the role of data analyst. Now, data analyst, once the data has been hosted in good applications or services, and it has been well integrated as well, that's where data analyst can come in and basically start looking at data, and hopefully data quality is there for data analysts to work with, and basically start producing some outcomes, start making some predictions or some insights which are useful for management and users and business analysts and those kind of things. From there on, you have two more roles. One is data scientist. Once some insights have been generated by data analyst, or some bit of automation has been done, some data quality has been created, and at least a good scale of data has been captured, data scientists can come in and look at data at a massive volume and start looking at patterns which probably are not visible to the naked eye, right? And they're especially useful when you have quite a big system of data, and you basically waiting a lot of time to analyze the data, right? And in those scenarios, having the insights alone doesn't help. Having the reports generated alone doesn't help. Data scientists are the people who can then generate some who can identify the patterns in the business and work with those patterns and basically provide more insightful um, data sets which business can consume at a much faster pace than what would normally come through if that's not been present. And then lastly, you have AI engineers. Now that you have got some machine learning in place, you have good quality data in place, and basically these all applications who are generating this data, you can then start looking at cognitive services, and those cognitive services become the consumer of the data that has been produced and can do more insightful work, more artificial intelligent work, which can basically complement the business processes and the business data that's already there. The reason I've put it out almost like a ring, if you think about it, is because that's exactly how it actually works. The data is being generated and then it goes through a full cycle and then it basically gets consumed back into the applications. If you think about AI applications is going back to business apps. It's basically about generating the right insights and giving a timely insight and a decision to the customers so that artificial intelligent system can take some calls and make some decisions and execute on things immediately. And all of this basically goes back again to business applications. So think about sales, for example, right? You obviously are getting data generated for who sold what product, what quantity, what was the inventory level, what was the quality level, whether the product is a return or not, and those kind of things. And then fast forward to the same application, which basically gives you an AI insight that for today, you, Mr. Salesperson, should be calling these 10 customers because they have the highest probability of needing your product right now, right? Cognitive services is one aspect of it. But obviously, if you think about artificial intelligence systems, it's the gamut and the spectrum is way much more wider than cognitive services alone, right? And that's the whole full spectrum is. And once you have got that insight, once you have got that AI decision somehow that these are the 10 customers that you should go and talk to, it then also looks at when you talk to them whether you actually ended up making a sale or not. And if not, then it basically adjusts itself and try to look at what other different aspects are there that can help you in closing the deal and closing the sales cycle. So that's how this whole loop basically works through, and something that you have to work with. So with that, let's go and start talking about some of the roles. Let's start with data engineer. Personally, that's very close to my heart, so I thought I'll make a start with this and see how we go. But basically, if you think about Azure data engineer, right? So again, the same question. Reminding you of the theme that we're going to look at. We're going to look at why and how about all these different roles. So why to become a data engineer, right? There are so many other things that we looked at. Azure data engineer is a certification, and as a skill set will help you consume and leverage the data platform technologies to provide real business solutions. Now, this is a very lofty statement, of course, but in a sense, that's exactly what data engineer can do. They can basically look at all these different data services that we have from storage point of view, from relational data engine point of view, from analytics point of view, and basically look at and envisage what all things can be done to make sure that they can create a system end to end, and all these different components or services can interact with each other. And when they work together end to end, that leads to a real working business solution. Now, that business solution could be to do with, let's get everything from all different departments like finance, HR, and sales, and things like that. Or it could be, let's gather all the data that's out there in IoT devices so that our data science team can consume it, and at the same time, our stakeholders and management group can be reported up as well, right? So all those are very specific business solutions, and for you to be able to deliver against those, you need to have a very firm grasp of data platform technologies, and this certification and career pathway will enable you in doing that. So who are you? How do you know that this is something that's for me? Well, if you enjoy integrating systems together, how do I have this system generate data, either directly or in a CSV format, or just a direct connect on those kind of things, and inject that data into the second system so that I can do everything in one place rather than going to all different systems and doing things separately, right? You could also be somebody who enjoy taking control, because when you're creating data engineering pipelines, when you're creating data engineering solutions, basically what you're trying to do is you're basically sourcing all the different data source into one layer or service, and from there on conducting your outcomes to other services like analytical services and things like that, right? And when you do that, you need to have a very firm sense of controlling. Now, controlling not in a negative way, but more in the perspective of how do I make this solution as a standard solution, right? Obviously, if there are two completely different systems, then managing them might be different. But if you have similar systems, how do you manage about that, right? Password management, for example, password recycling, for example. When you extract data, then do you want to standardize that into a particular format, or do you just want to keep it, as what comes my way kind of a thing, right? So all those different aspects are there, which if it excites you, I think that's a good sign and a good telling that, data engineering pathway is probably something that you're looking at. And then if you think about data quality as well, I think that's a very strong sign to me personally. Because if you're looking at from the perspective, okay, I've got these dates from these three different systems, and some of these systems have years at the front, and then some have years at the end. How do I make it look so that when somebody is reading these three different dates, then they are reading correct dates, right? With date in the front, then month next, and then year next kind of a thing. So that's a very simplistic example, but if you can put yourself in the shoes of the consumer or the data analyst or anybody who's going to look at the data, and just visualize how they're going to feel if they look at data from all these different perspectives, I think that's again a strong sign that you're looking at it from data quality perspective, and you're probably going to either solve that problem or you're going to ask the right questions, and that's again is a good indicator. So we talked about standards already, so that's good. Other than that, data engineers are somebody who will be very focused on scale and security. How frequently am I getting this data? What's the scale of the data that's coming? What's the volume of the data that's coming? You could have 6 different systems who are feeding data into your application or into your business solution. And one of that application is super noisy, as in super chatty, producing a lot of data. And then there could be some who are not so noisy, changes very less kind of thing. So how do you go and manage that? And if you think some of those things, these are the bits and pieces which will kind of, make you think more like a data engineer. Now, mind you that some of these aspects are not covered as the certification requirements, right? Certification basically focuses on the technologies and the capabilities and the features and the way you can use those technologies. I'm talking more about Azure Data Engineer as a pathway, why you should even think about that, for example, right? Security is another aspect. Generally speaking, data people, especially data engineers, they will be concerned about who's looking at my data and is it required for them to look at my data, right? So security is pretty simplistic in that regard. Obviously, the measures are a lot complicated, but the thought process is pretty straightforward. And if I just be kind of, summarizing this whole conversation around data engineers, I think they are the linchpins for the data economy. Linchpin is the word which is denoting that object, which basically is almost like, something which is holding everything together. If you have too many threads going in and out, linchpin is the one that every thread will have to dissect through with. All right, and that's what data engineer is. Very critical role. Generally speaking, very smart people, and they can look at the problems. They can sense the problems before they come through, hopefully, but nonetheless, a good role to think about. Now let's go further and think about what is it that's needed from this perspective. Now, I will not look at or go into much on Azure fundamentals, especially if you're looking at Azure Data Engineer as a certification pathway or any other certification that we're going to talk about from here on. There is an underlying expectation that you already are aware of how to use Azure platform, right? So Azure fundamentals is basically geared in that direction. So first exam is DP200. So Azure Data Engineer exam, certification rather, comes with 2 exams. One is DP200, and DP200 covers very specifically services like Azure storage. So there is a service called storage account that you should know about, SQL databases, relational databases, why you should use them, what are the different options that you have, what are the security mechanisms you have, what are the high availability options you have. And then you have Synapse, again, the similar bits and pieces, security, high availability, what kind of different mechanisms you can create, what are the different pricing mechanisms that you have. And then Event Hub is more towards, you have streaming data coming in, how do you capture that data? And then obviously the next is Stream Analytics to, you've got the data captured from IoT devices or applications, for example, and then how do you go about creating some analytics on top of that? And Databricks. And Databricks is more around, creating that system which basically has flexibility on what kind of modality you want to work with, and basically deliver a solution which is fully functional from SQL, graph, and few other bits and different modalities that you can basically use with that. Cosmos database, again, are very popular services. Very popular service rather, and something that you should be thinking about, where does it fit in the overall solutioning when it comes to data solutions. So these are the different 7 services that you will work through when you're preparing for DP200. And as I said, think about from the perspective of high availability, scale, performance, pricing. Obviously, you don't have to remember the pricing as such, but knowing the different tiers of pricing will definitely help you. Next one is DP201, which is the next kind of block in the exams for this. Now, DP201 is interesting because this exam is actually, so DP200 is focused very heavily on technology, right? All these 7 technologies that we talked about. DP201, on the other hand, is actually more focused on the architecture thought process. And it will think about things like architecture pillars. How is it that a batch processing system is different to a real-time processing system, for example? It also talks about, what different options and thought processes you should carry when it comes to securing, scalability, making your system more resilient and efficient when it comes to data solution. And once you have cleared both these 2 exams, you will basically, you basically will hold Azure Data Engineer as a credential. Now, how do you go about preparing for it? There is ak.ms/learn, which is Microsoft Learn website. There is a data engineer learning pathway in that. Please go ahead and explore that. I'm not kidding on this. Everyone in Microsoft is actually using that these days. It's obviously we have documentation and everything, but the way that site has been created, and I'm part of the team, which is, rather organization, which is owning that platform, the effort and the quality that has been baked into this platform is absolutely mind-boggling. And I'm not saying it because I'm at Microsoft right now. I'm really saying it because I do enjoy learning from that platform. So please go ahead and explore that. Other than that, you have open source GitHub repositories available on GitHub for both DP200 and DP201. Um, Please work through the labs. I think we will share the links with you either in the chat or maybe through this slide pack itself. But the links are there available, which will be provided. And once you're done with that, and if you just want to explore a bit more, one of the things that I like doing a lot is basically just jumping onto portal.azure.com. You can create your free account if you like, which will probably give you about $200 and a month worth of time to go and explore things, or years worth of time to go and use a free account and just work through the examples. There are a lot of examples which are available on portal itself. If you like, you can explore that as well. So now let's go and talk about Azure Data Administrator. Before I go ahead and do that, Namrata, how are we going on the time? Am I overrunning or something?
Hey, Vikas. So yeah, we had originally scheduled for 12:50 for data administrator to end, but I think you can take another 5-7 minutes to continue, and maybe we can cut down on the break a bit.
Yeah, let's do that then. Perfect. That's fine. Thanks for that, Namrata. So let's carry on with this. The next role that we want to talk about is Azure Data Administrator. So why would I be interested in that? Or how do I know that I can be this person? There is this understanding, and obviously I won't say that it's a wrong understanding, but there is this understanding that, oh, data administrators are not required anymore because we're going to the cloud. I think it's far from true. If organizations are moving to cloud, the fact is data infrastructure is still needed to be owned, and high availability is still needed to be created. Performance is still needed to be analyzed. Security is still needed to be put in place. And all these different bits and pieces that I just talked about, they do come in preview of a data administrator, right? Generally speaking, if you think that you're somebody who perform well under pressure, I think I think you should be smiling at yourself, because this is something that could be one of the signs. And when I say under pressure, it's not like everybody's screaming at you, but things are down, platforms are not working. 404 page not found errors are coming, database is not responding. Those kind of things are there, and when that kind of thing can happen, if your production side is down, if you can keep your calm and go forward with the solutioning, I think that's a telling. From data administration point of view, one of the things I'll definitely say that this is quite a critical role. This is not your usual walk into the office, do my day job, and get over with it, right? If your platform is down, you basically can't go for your coffee break. You won't feel like going for a coffee break. It's not like anybody's shouting at you not to do that. You won't feel like doing it. You won't feel like having your lunch in your lunch cafeteria or something. There is a strong chance you won't even feel hungry if your platforms are down, kind of a thing, and if you are the administrators. So that's where I will put it, right? They play a very critical role. They understand the criticality of operations. They understand the criticality of, if a backup has not completed successfully, then somebody has to really look at it right now, because the system could actually go down, and that very backup which has actually failed might be needed and might be the savior from the situation that we might get into, right? They understand data management, they understand security. Other than that, they also understand the patterns for creating solutions which are highly available. Now, the reason I said patterns is because there are multitude of requirements or expectations, and there are multiple ways of meeting those requirements, right? And that's why I said, there are multiple patterns that somebody has to work with or understand at least. Think about what is disaster recovery, right? And how do you go and recover from a disaster in a system, right? When somebody recovers from disaster recovery, there is an expectation of, everything will come back as is, but does it happen? Is that a right expectation? Even having that answer very concisely and explaining that to somebody in the business is something that I would expect data administrators to be able to do very, very well, right? Maybe not so much system administrators, but data administrators, they will be awesome at doing that. And then at the last bit of performance tuning and automation, right? Cuts through the automation bit that I talked about earlier, for example. And those, last two bullets, I would say, are the areas which, I have meddled with quite a lot, and, obviously learned a good way, learned the hard way and everything. But yeah, that's where the real kind of, performance comes in. And if you think about performance tuning, a very simple thing, there is a concept of baselining, right? Why should I think about baselining my performance? I'm sorry, my writing is really bad, but why should I go and think about baselining my performance of my application? A data administrator will just, they will not blink an eye and will start talking immediately, right? So having that understanding, having that critical thought process in place, and then mechanisms and measures in place so that these things are happening. If you are that person, then obviously that data administrator is right up your alley. So if you think about, sorry, I think I have got back. Right. So what do you do? Well, obviously fundamentals. Exam for this is DP300. This is a very new exam that has been rolled out. And I highly encourage you to explore that and just think about what are the different possibilities. It does take you to the very specific and nitty-gritties of some of the platforms. So for example, it talks about data platforms. You should know things like SQL Server in different formats like SQL on VM, and then Azure SQL databases and different modalities that you can deploy Azure SQL databases. Open source databases, for example, you have Postgres, Maria, MySQL. So it does talk about how these open source databases work in Azure. And also understand database security, both securing data at rest and in transit. From monitoring point of view, how do you create your baseline? How do you monitor performance? How do you create maintenance tasks, and how do you monitor that they are happening correctly or not, right? So all those different things are there which you can manage, through monitoring. And then performance, thinking on lines of, your users are running application logic, which is basically generated SQL queries and other queries. How do you look at what all different queries are being run? Are they efficient or not? Does somebody needs to kind of tweak their queries so that the system is working well for them, for example? How is the database design, physical or logical design working for the application? So all those kind of things are clear telling that you will have to work through when you prepare for DP300. And then obviously around automation, how do you automate certain things when it comes to data solutions? Where you can use SQL agent. Can you use SQL agent with all SQL services or not with all SQL services? So all of that is available when it comes to automation. And then lastly is around high availability and disaster recovery. So it does talk about different strategies that's there, and some recommendations. What are different tools available on Azure, for example, for enabling high availability and disaster recovery for data solutions, and obviously get into backup recovery. So with all these different 6 areas, when you have worked through them and you sit the exam DP300, that's when you get the credential of Azure Data Admin. So how do you prepare for it? Well, I'll be very direct, and I think I can't be more direct than putting it right in writing. Be hands-on, literally. I have taken this exam. It's a good exam. It tests you. It really does test you. I think none of the Azure certifications that I have taken so far, I'll just openly call it out. They are not formality. They're not like, go through the content, sit the exam, and you're done. They are meant to really test you. They are meant to be validating that you do know the things, and they will throw you to dark corners. And this exam is one of them. So think about how do you set up monitoring, and how do you tune performance? How do you create clusters, and how do you, backup and restore database backups and things like that. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm here to encourage you to take certification and step forward in your career, right? So I'm not here to scare you on this. All of these things I'm trying to call out is that this is critical, this is important, right? And the material is available on MS Learn. Again, it has been called out, and voila, we actually have a data admin learning path as well, right? So it does take you through all of those details step by step. There are labs which are already integrated. If you want to carry out your labs by yourself, you can work through the DP300 GitHub labs by yourself as well. And then at the same time, as I said earlier, do try out the examples which are there on portal.azure.com, right? So these are the key resources that I'll definitely call out that you probably should think about exploring and hopefully prepare for that. So that was 2 certifications that I wanted to talk about. Namrata, do you want to take over and call out how long the break will be for the tea, please?
Hey, hi, Vikas. Yeah, sure. So we are actually only 2 minutes as per our agenda left for the break, but we can, I think, stretch to 3 more minutes, and we start at 1:05. Is that all right with you, Vikas?
Yep, that's fine. So I'll be here anyways. I'm not going anywhere. So let's call out the break. If anybody has any questions, please put that in the chat window. But let's take a 5 minutes tea break. And Namrata, when we are ready, please give it a shout, and we will start back again.
Sure. So we all come back online on 1:05. So everyone, please get something to drink and a small bite, and please put in your questions in the chat, and we'll interact.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, so we are at 1:05, so maybe we resume the session back again now. Vikas, are you available?
Yeah, we can get a kickstart right away.
Sure. Great. I'm going to stop sharing.
Cool. So let me share my screen again. Oops. So I hope you can see that dark chocolate again.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Actually, you can't make it whether it's a dark chocolate or a dark coffee, but still, I think I'll let you make your choices. Nonetheless, welcome back. Great to have back again. So a very quick reminder, previous to this, we talked about why do we even think about a career in data? What are the different pathways? For example, we talked about where you could be in a journey, and we are in midst of the second part of the session, which is around talking about very specific data certifications we have in Azure. And in particular, we talked about data engineer and data administrator before going on the break. So in this particular section, we are now going to continue with the same second part of the session, and we're going to talk about three more certifications, which is around data analyst, machine learning engineer, which is Azure data scientist, and AI engineer as well. So let's start with Azure data analyst. So again, the same theme. Why do we do it? Well, very simply, you like to analyze data. You just see a tabular format of data in front of you and you just go nuts. And you're like, okay, let's look at it from all the different aspects. Let's look at it from the perspective of whether or not it makes sense, whether or not it's lining up. Is it complete? Is it incomplete? What's the trend looking like? Was it, all that, aspect of, what is the story that you want to derive out of it? And are you able to create or weave a story from the data that's there in front of you, right? So all of that is there. And very importantly, for a good data analyst, I personally find it's not just about finding the good story, it's also, and obviously analyzing the data properly, but also about reducing the noise. There will always be the case where some data elements are there, which is there, and you can't deny that, but then it doesn't add much value to your overall story. Now, again, I'm not saying that create your story and then whatever data is not supporting that story, drop it. I'm not saying that. But then, there are real specific scenarios where some data is actually not lined up with everything else in the system, and that could be an anomaly, that could be a wrong reading, it could be just a manual error, it could be a systemic error, whatever that's there. But basically, you are able to analyze not from just perspective of what's there in front of you, but if you see some anomaly, then you can probably figure that out as well. So that's where I would probably say a good data analyst stand. When you look at Azure data analyst certification, almost the whole life cycle can be contained within Power BI. And it's an amazing, awesome product that's going around for quite some time. It's hard to believe that it's been around for such a long time already. And the interest and the adoption for that particular product is just absolutely mind-boggling. And it's only upwards. It's only upwards. So obviously, having a full spectrum understanding of Power BI and how that can go into your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 stacks, how it can go into your PowerPoints, how it can be rolled up into dashboards and creating stories around it, how you can collaborate with your teams and peers and management and stakeholders with this one particular product. All of that is a strong telling, right? And that's what data analysts are good at. And in particular, in this particular certification, Power BI is really the focus as well. When you look at data analysis, it's not just about data is in front of me, how do I go about it now? Data analysts are people who would be understanding how to source data, and at the very high level, at least, how do you model data? They at least should understand relationships, for example, right? Um, Again, not human relationships, but more relationship in the data. If there is something wrong in data, how do you optimize that? There is a particular focus on DAX, for example, which is analytical expression language, which is going around in Power BI, very powerful, and something that you should be at least across with. And then on the very high level, principles for reports and dashboards, and how do you collaborate? Why do you even collaborate when it comes to data analysis, for example, right? Um, you 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 wouldn't want everybody to be analyzing last year's financial data, right? You probably want a team or a very specific person to be doing that, and whatever the findings are, the person can just probably just put up on the dashboard or something, and then within the organization people can start looking at it, right? So that's where collaboration basically comes in. So all of these bits and pieces are important, and if these things are talking to you, I think that's a strong sign that you probably have a good data analyst in you. The one thing I do want to call out is, it's not just about dissecting the data and that's about it, right? It's not about, oh, my interpretation of this data is that, because guess what? Uh, Everybody is entitled to their own interpretation of data. If you're thinking about data analysts, and specifically in Azure space, in Microsoft space, there is a great focus on how do you source data, how do you model it, how do you optimize it, how do you create a report, what are the right ways of doing it, when do you create a dashboard, and how do you go about collaborating across different teams, and how do you exchange the data and information across different teams. And I think that's one of the key focus as well. Now, beyond that, I think if you have some basic understanding of how the licensing works for different source systems, for your Power BI system, how does integration work, at least the high level, as in data integration? What does data governance mean to you? What does data quality means to you? All and master data, for example, all these kind of things are critical when it comes to having a good grasp and understanding of what you should be knowing, or why you should choose that as a career pathway. Oops, what happened here? Sorry, I just keep pressing the wrong button. Now, if you look about what's there that's covered in this, obviously we are expecting, or recommending rather, that you come through Azure Fundamentals, which is AZ900. So I'm sorry, I never put that code out, but AZ900 is Azure Fundamentals certification. You can go through that, and we actually will talk about it a bit later on, and that's a bit of a good news that I didn't share even with the panels that we have today. So you will get to hear that good news a bit later on. So DA100 is the exam code for this. If you think about data preparation, is the one aspect of when you're going about getting data from different sources, how do you prepare your data so that it's consistent and your users can understand it, and you basically can relate to it as well. Modeling the data is important. Now, again, mind you that your source systems would have been physically and logically modeled already. That solution was already in place, right? So you're not changing that model. You're creating a model only for the reports that you're creating, only for the story that you're trying to tell, because they could still be a good data model that you need to prepare for that, right? You don't have to be scared by this term here. This is something which is covered in great lengths on, again, Microsoft Learn website. But again, we're talking about not just preparing for the certification, but also knowing how to be a good data analyst, and understanding the intricacies of data modeling, at least at the high level, is going to help you in reaching that. And then you talk about reports, thinking of how the reports can be created, and then dashboards, how the dashboards can be created, what are the distinctions. For example, if I just ask you a very simple question, what is the difference between a report and a dashboard, right? Very simple question. And I think having that distinction is something which is critical from from your perspective. So, explore that a bit more. If you're not aware, happy for you to just, search it online or something like that, and just basically work with that. And then it also talks about some of the advanced analytic features which are there in Power BI. And then at the end, it also talks about different Power BI services that you have. Different modalities, like you have desktop, you have publishing, you have data sets, you have workspaces, you have Power BI reports, you have Power BI data sets. All these different aspects are critical, and governance is kind of embedded right through and through. Now, one thing that I do want to call out is that all of these different aspects that we just talked about, they're all within the context of Power BI. All of these things are possible and doable in Power BI. And this particular exam is actually focused on that, right? So it does take you almost on a journey to help you understand how these different things are working, and helps you work with that, basically. So once you have sat that exam, cleared the exam, you will get the credential, which is Azure Data Analyst. So how do you prepare for it? Again, sorry, but same exact words, be hands-on. Think about, how do you source the data? Think about, how do you model data once the data has been sourced up? If you're running your reports, but they're not working very well, if they're performing very slow, then how do you optimize the data, right? Are you sourcing everything in and then trying to create a filter, or you're trying to filter the data before it's sourced, and so that your data reports are basically smaller in footprint, for example, right? Then how do you create reports? What are the different elements that you can throw at it? How do you create dashboards? How you can collaborate by virtue of creating dashboards? How do you see the reports on a mobile, for example, right? And then what are some of the key advanced analytics features which are available? How do you even use them? How do you consume them, right? Again, not to put you off, not to scare you off. It is basically calling out that these different aspects are there that you can really go and leverage, and that's what it's about. And then you have data analyst learning path that you can work with. Learning Hub, GitHub pathways there on GitHub, which you can work through for the labs. And also, just for some encouragement, I would definitely suggest look through what's there in Power BI Gallery. There is some absolutely amazing stuff that comes through, and I highly encourage you to basically step through that and see what's there, and just go with that. Namrata, quick call out. Can you please call out how much time is remaining?
Sure. So we have about 25 minutes for the Q&A till we reach the Q&A portion. Yeah. So we are at 1:20. Yeah.
Perfect. So I have 25 minutes to keep going, and then we have Q&A, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's now talk about data scientist role and Azure data scientist, and why should we even think about it? So when you think about Azure data scientist, why should I worry about it? Or how do I know that I'm kind of inclined towards it? It's one of those areas which is quite interesting, and there is this thought process that data scientists are the people who will come with PhDs and those kind of things. I mean, obviously they do come with PhDs. There is nothing wrong with that. But then there are people who are very naturally inclined towards the statistics and mathematics that goes behind it, and basically understands the math which supports the data aspect. Now, just to call out as well, even the relational databases that we generally associate ourselves to when it comes to data, database management systems actually were based on relational theory, right? So the relationship between data technologies and the scientific technologies, they have been around and they have been present since the very beginning of data technologies itself, right? So relational theory is the baseline reason that database management systems were created and persisted for such a long time. So it's not a surprise that data science has kind of emerged as such a massive field, and with so much of interest across the board. So you do have that scientific thought process that goes with it. But then it's not just about creating algorithms as well, right? I do want people to see through and kind of almost embrace it with open arms, rather than thinking, okay, I need to spend next 5 years studying it and then I'll become a data scientist. I'm actually aware of some of the data scientists who are nothing more than a graduate, and that's fine, right? I know somebody who is actually absolutely rock solid, and in data science, I mean to say, and the person was almost, I mean, eventually the person did completed his degree, but he almost dropped from his uni as well, right? In fact, he started his company when he was doubting to complete his degree or not, right? So all of those stories and aspects are there, and I just wanted to put out in perspective and just put it out in open as well, that when it comes to data science, it's not just about algorithms. Things are a lot bigger and wider beyond algorithms when it comes to data science. You have data operations, day in, day out of data operations, which is needed. In fact, almost every one of my data scientist friend that I talk to, that is where they spend most of their time. So the reports that we generally see out there that, oh, a lot of data scientists are actually working more on data operations side than on data science side, they are absolutely true, right? And so understanding of that, how do you operationalize, how do you automate, how do you look at data quality issues up front, how do you test your applications and your algorithms with as less data as possible, and then still make sure that it works when it's put on production for the full scale kind of analysis, or predictions rather. That all is what is the real skill in this, right? So don't hold yourself back if that's something that you're worried about, right? So data science as a field, yes, there is an understanding of machine learning, there is a data science understanding, there is a bit of a stats understanding that's required, but that is required more from the perspective of knowing what is happening and why this is happening, right? Real doing is in operations, real doing is in automation, and real doing is getting things done as quickly as possible. So for example, in this, and this is like, I'm not making it up, this is something, the reality, DevOps has a major role in how data science gets delivered, right? And something that we all should be thinking about, and hence the reason why, in fact, there is a term called ML Ops these days, right? Which is machine learning operations, right? That literally has become one of the things, and there are toolings and specialist pathways which are possible to go and work in that. Now, when you look at Azure Data Scientist certification from Microsoft, it is actually more geared towards machine learning engineering side of things rather than on data science aspect. I mean, obviously there are some bits of pieces which will be called out, but the key focus is on machine learning and engineering aspect on, what are the different mechanisms for you to create your compute resources? How do you operationalize this? How do you automate that? How do you generate that outcome? How do you kind of, store your outcome and all those kind of things? And in fact, from labs perspective, it's one of the kind of best lab solutions that I've seen, at least to my understanding so far. And obviously, my understanding is not that great. It's still limited. I'm still learning, but still. Now, when you look at Azure Data Scientist, and if you're thinking about whether it's a career pathway for you or not, and even if you're not convinced so far, I think one of the things that you probably need to ask yourself is, if you're looking at data science, then what is your perspective of coding for data science and versus delivering for data science? Because these are two different aspects. When you're coding for data science, you're basically writing algorithms. And mind you that there are very popular algorithms which are used and reused across the industry in some of the biggest organizations out there, and they just keep reusing it, right? And some of these algorithms are very, very popular. And then versus to delivering for data science, which is more about how well do I know my data? How well can I operationalize my data science pipelines? How can I automate my data science pipelines? How I can engineer a solution which can generate the outcomes, and how do I consume that outcome into my real business applications, right? And that is what I mean by delivering for data science, right? So, and both of these aspects are very much covered within the construct of data science, right? So think about that, and that will probably tell you and hopefully encourage you to pursue this pathway, irrespective of where you are in your career. Okay, this is not massive. This is something that you can start with. This is something that you can really get a foothold on and really make your career out of it. So let's talk about what's there to be covered. Obviously, you have to think about Azure Fundamentals, which is AZ900. DP100, that's the code for the exam. If you go and prepare for that, the first bit that you probably will work through is Azure Machine Learning Workspace. So there is a construct of workspace. Workspace basically contains all the different aspects of compute resources, data sets, and few other bits and pieces. How do you go and kind of publish? Where do you store your notebooks? How do you share or exchange the notebooks within your workspace? So all of that is possible that you can work with. And then how do you go about experimentation and training the models? So there are certain libraries that you can work with. Azure has some very specific libraries that are exposed and leveraged that you should work through. And how do you go about optimizing the models? And then at the end, once you have created a solution which works end to end and basically brings the resources, bring the data sets, bring the compute, bring the model as well, generate the outcomes and then publish the outcome somewhere. So how do you go and automate that? So all of that is also something which is covered quite in good detail. And once you have sat the exam and cleared it, you obviously get Azure Data Scientist as a credential. Now, one of the things when you go about preparing for it, one of the things that I'll say is in DP100 GitHub repository, you will see there are notebooks which are available. I highly recommend working through those notebooks in great length of detail. It is set up very, very well, and it actually talks about almost everything that you need to know from the library's point of view, from the way execution works, and the way end-to-end workflow works in the solution. And the questions are also quite a lot aligned. Now, I'm not saying that please don't look at the content, but all I'm saying is that it's again one of those hands-on courses. This is something that you really should try and work through your labs as well, quite extensively if possible. And then you will be ready to sit the exam as well. But otherwise, the resources are pretty much same. If you go to Microsoft Learn website, you will see there is a data scientist learning pathway that you can step through and basically work with that. When you are using these these technologies and these resources, think also of cross leverage and integrations. For example, how do you integrate Databricks into it? So if you look at the labs, it actually does talk about some of that, but these are some of the edge cases that you probably should be thinking about as well. And then obviously focus on the tooling and the ways tooling works. What is the workflow that you need to pursue if you're trying to automate something, for example. On the very high level, what are the libraries? What are the invocations that you use? What are the methods that you use, for example? And what is the overall process for achieving certain things? You can parameterize a lot of things, but how do you parameterize? How do you invoke those parameters, for example? So do think about those. The focus is on these aspects of operations and automation and executing Azure machine learning components, and not as such on models. So we are not going to look at least from what I've seen so far, the focus is not on algorithmic models of you have these kind of categories, and within that you have these classes of models, and then these are the popular. No, none of that, right? Because it is expected that you already have that understanding. You already have that kind of business speak, if I may say that. and basically work with that on how do you automate and operationalize that solution and have that working with Azure Machine Learning. And obviously, what are the good things that Azure Machine Learning platform has to offer so that you can get these things done in a much better and an organized way. Now, last certification that we want to talk about is Azure AI Engineer. Now, why should I think about that? Well, if you are one of those people who have been breaking the radios in the house or the stereo tapes in the house or opening up the TVs and then just trying to figure out how this bloody technology is working or electronics is working, I think AI engineer is there in you. If you enjoy automating things which can lead to physical aspects of the solution, physical movements and those kind of things, then Azure Engineer is a pathway for you. It's basically a mix of cognitive services, and it brings in machine learning and knowledge mining, for example. It adds to the mix. And the key bit that I'll add there, a lot of time people basically just go and get fixated into cognitive services. Oh, see, I can, visualize a picture. I can give some words and a picture is drawn, and I can give a stream file and it can kind of type the text and everything. Look, that's all good, and obviously that's a great way of doing it. But then think about, how does it work? How does it add as a value to the business? How different services can work off the back of that, right? So, for example, somebody provided a recorded file or voice recording, and the system can write that into text. Then what is the advantage? What's there? Okay, it could be a legal reason to document everything that somebody has said, but then the same file can then actually be used by somebody or by other system to basically read that content to somebody who has some disability, right? So all those end-to-end perspectives are critical, right? And these cognitive services, they are the producers of certain outcomes, and they are also, in a lot of cases, they are also consumers of some of the other services outcomes as well, right? So for example, as I said, you have a recorded file which got translated into text, scribed into text, and then there is another service which is basically reading that text and have that translated into a different language, for example, and then provide it to a person with some disabilities, right? So all of that is there. And the key bit that I want to call out is that it's not so much about just these services and cognitive services and things like that. It's about integration. It's about what is the business solution that you want to produce and how do you go about it. And very critically, adding scale to it. You having cognitive services that you are testing by yourself is one thing, but the same exact solution being exposed up to 10 million people for them to be using it at their will, so scale can go up and down, and the system still works, right? So all of that is a consideration that Azure engineer, AI engineer should be thinking about. So what is there? Obviously, Azure Fundamentals is a 900. The real code that you have to sit through or look for is AI 100. In this, we focus, when we go and prepare for the exam, we specifically focus on creating the bots and also look at things like Q&A. There is a component called LUIS, which is language understanding and interpretation, if I'm not wrong. That is something which is used as part of the overall cognitive services baseline or fundamental or foundation service, and something that we go and expose as we prepare for this. And then cognitive services itself, thinking about vision and speech and those kind of things, and how do you use them. And the way that labs work and the way the kind of knowledge will work, you will probably you probably will see that the solution, the conversation basically matures up like this. So it basically starts with with creating the bots, and then keeps going up to creating the, adding Q&A, adding Lewis, and then, bringing cognitive services and those kind of things. So that's how, you will see that the conversation matures for you. And once you have sat the exam and cleared it, you obviously will have Azure AI Engineer as your credential. So how do you prepare for that? Obviously, AI Engineer pathway is there, which you can leverage. I always recommend when it comes to AI Engineer as a solution, obviously beyond the scope of the exam itself, think end-to-end delivery and integration. That is critical. I think just by having cognitive services alone by itself is not AI, right? You have to have that end-to-end perspective for the system to actually go and work for you. And then also think about labs that's available. So the link will be provided again that you can leverage up. But basically, my recommendation would be to go and step through the labs itself to know what is happening. Okay, so we talked about 5 certifications. What's next? Well, once you have got those certifications, one of the things that I will probably go and do is try to get some experience. Now, it is easier said than done, obviously. Experience doesn't come always by the jobs, by the way, right? Think of it this way. How many things that we want to do are available in our roles? Not a lot, right? So the same thing actually applies on this as well. If you are passionate about some particular area or some particular certification and some particular technologies, go and experience them. Create your own personal projects, for example. There are a lot of NGOs or charities who will allow you to work on some of the things, and probably can just throw in these ideas and see how it works. And showcase your work as well where it's possible. Don't hesitate in telling others around you that you're doing these things, right? And there is nothing wrong with saying that, look, I'm learning. Can you take my question and answer that, right? So a lot of times people will be there to see what you're doing and at the same time contribute back to you as well. The next thing that you probably should do is about broadcasting. Once you have got these credentials, or if you're still working through the credentials, broadcast, talk to people, tell them I'm doing this, right? In a way that you own it, right? And it can be done through like attending professional networks, something that you're doing right now. So that's good on you. And work with social groups, offer your help, offer your inputs. If your inputs are wrong, somebody will tell you that it's wrong. And that's a good learning for us, right? So think of some of those things. Look at GitHub repositories. There is a ton of information and resources which are available for free out there. We just have to go and explore that a bit more. And lastly, have a growth mindset. This is something which is coming from Microsoft itself. So, don't hesitate in saying that openly. When you go and, look at some of these things, think about how you can be better. Think about related technologies. Think about the soft skills that's needed. For example, if you want to be a good data analyst, obviously you will be working a lot with the business users, right? If you're not a people person, then probably think about it. Maybe are you more suited for a data engineer or data admin, for example, or maybe data scientist for that matter, right? And again, I'm not saying that, you're not suited for one role or other. I'm just saying that there are certain things that we naturally are inclined to. And when you have those things, then, probably it works in our best interest to look where the synergies are and then work with that, right? And don't hesitate in seeking a mentor. If you see somebody who is good and, doing things which you would like to do and achieve, don't hesitate in asking questions. When you're looking for mentoring, obviously think about, do you just want a mentor as being a person there, or you have some very specific question? I generally work with many people at the same time because I have many questions to answer, right? And that's how I generally learn. So rather than sticking to one person at a time, I could be talking to multiple people and rather have meaningful conversations with many people rather than having regular conversations with just one person, right? So that's how I look at it. And remember that, irrespective of where you are in the journey, you can actually contribute to others as well. So um, I say it as a way of paying forward. So when you receive something, pay forward as well. And that's a great way of looking at it, improving professionally and personally. Now, data search is obviously not just the only one thing. You have other options as well. But before I go ahead and do that, one of the things that's available, and one of the links I probably seek panels support with as well. There are virtual training days that's available, and what these virtual training days are about is that these are the scheduled events that Microsoft runs on different frequencies and per different schedules. When you go and attend those, you actually get the stipulated training online. But very critically, you also get a free voucher to sit an exam. Don't miss that out, right? So I'll have that link circulated to everyone. Please take that opportunity and schedule yourself for some of the trainings. Once you have completed the training, you will receive an exam voucher as well that you can use for some of the fundamentals training. These vouchers are not suited for all the different certifications, but at least the fundamentals will be covered. And there is a good list of exams that you can really take with this, right? So please watch out for that. And once you have got the links, then please schedule some. And that's a free resource available to you to take the exam if you would like to do that. Now, beyond data, obviously you have a dev pathway that you can look at. This goes towards Azure Developer and Azure DevOps, for example. There is architecture pathway as well, where you look at infrastructure admin, architecture, security, for example. And there are some specialist pathway that I've not listed. Now, that's on Azure path. Obviously, there is a dedicated business apps pathway as well. And that's where you have Dynamics 365 and Power Apps and things like that. So all these different pathways are possible. Again, there is a link for certification poster. I'll probably request the panels to go and share that with the group. So you can definitely go and leverage that. And whatever is the certification options available right now with Microsoft, you will have all of those details in one poster, and you can really work with where do you fit and where would you like to go. All right. So with that, I would like to open up for any questions that you might be having. Namrata, would you like to take on and facilitate this, please?
Yes, sure. So thank you, Vikas, first of all, for this great session. I think you covered a lot of roles and a lot of great advice for starters. I think a lot of our audience today are students and they'll benefit from this. So going on to the question, we have one from Divya. How can AI be integrated in marketing from a career perspective?
Thanks, Divya. That's a great question. So let me put it this way, right? So let's say you have Dynamics 365 where marketing campaigns are being managed, right? And as a salesperson, you're getting these leads that these are the 10 customers that you should reach out to, or these are the 10,000 customers that you can reach out to, right? Now, what AI could do is it could look at some confidence scores and it can look at some probabilistic analysis to say that, okay, rather than throwing 10,000 customer leads to me, I would probably throw only 10 customers that I can call, let's say, in first 2 hours of the day. And when I call those 10 customers as a salesperson, depending on the outcome, the system can gauge within the first 2 hours that out of those 10 customers, how many sales I have been able to do, right? And depending on that, it will basically learn and cross-apply the new rules and give me the next 10 set of customers to go and call after my first tea break, hopefully, right? And when that happens, it again does the same cycle of looking at, okay, forget about the first lot. I've got the new 10 customers that I can target. And out of these 10 customers, how many sales I have been able to do, right? And then again, it does the exact same loop of learning again that how much successful sales I have been able to do. And the system then capture that and then give me the next 10 customers. Now, you can imagine that when the system is throwing these 10 customers at me to make a phone call and try to sell them or to them, the system is basically trying to work with certain parameters, and the outcome of that basically helps the system to tweak its model a bit further and give me the next 10 recommendations on the basis of that, right? This is not a lot different from what you already see in the real life in social media, for example, right? These are the 3 new people that we think you should connect with. Now, that is probably coming through the network that I already have in place. And off the back of that, it gives me those recommendations. System doesn't know that I talk to these 2 people and I absolutely hate this third person. It's just that our network is exactly the same. I would not ever connect with a third person, but the system will still throw that at me, right? So that's how I will probably put it, that, when you look at AI, when you look at decisioning from data science and probability, for example, coming through, and then in real time, the system can capture whether the given input is actually a success or a failure, and the kind of next lot of recommendations can be tweaked to basically align with that as well. So I hope I've answered your question. If not, then happy for you to clarify, and I'm more than happy to expand further.
Thanks, Vikas. Yes, Divya, if you have a follow-up, please post it in the chat. So I'm just looking for any more questions in the meantime. Yeah, so we have another one from Mahalakshmi. So she asked that, could you talk a little more about how to approach these certificates along with a product mindset?
So the way I will look at it is, the product mindset is a bit interesting. The product mindset is all about when I go and do my job, I basically deliver the solution in a way that I can create a product out of it and leverage that in subsequent jobs or subsequent business problems, for example. So that's what the product mindset is all about. And when you look at the certifications, I think you can think of it from the perspective of, okay, if I'm going about doing a data solution, then what is the end-to-end offering that I want to create, right? So for example, if you are more of a database developer, then end-to-end offering might be that I want to be a good data engineer so that I can create a solid data foundation. And I want to be a data analyst so that I can talk to the customer and deliver the data story that they can believe in and they can collaborate with, right? So when I look at that, basically what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to design a solution from scratch, which will be a data engineering solution. And it can source the data, it can create a very solid data foundation. And off the back of that data solution foundation, my data analysis solution can be created by using Power BI. So I have that full end-to-end story that I can talk to and I can deliver in different organizations. Just to take it further up, for example, let's leave that one story aside. Let's say, if I'm more interested in data admin pathways, I'm just making it up, right? So if I'm more interested in data admin pathway, so probably I'm more interested in operations, I'm more interested in automation, I'm more interested in control and security and those kind of things, right? So what I'll do is I'll probably go and focus on Azure Infra Admin, because that's another, although it's not an data admin course, but it's again, how do you control your infrastructure pathway? So I will do that certification. And I will also look at Azure Data Admin, which we talked about. If you are highly experienced in the space, Maybe I'll throw Azure architecture, which is AZ 303 and 304 exams as well. But if not that, let's say if you're more concerned about the security, then probably I'll go and do Azure Security Engineer course as well, right? So these three, Azure Infrastructure Admin, Azure Data Admin, and Azure Security Admin, these three courses put together gives me that absolutely rock solid foundation that I can really stand with, and I can create a data solution, an end-to-end solution, which I know is going to be working, it's going to be highly available, it's going to be secured. And yeah, that basically becomes your product, because you can then take that knowledge and really automate that end to end. So for example, you can create your own script, you can create your own ARM templates to stand network infrastructure, to put policies in place, to create the right data solutions and create the right data services with the right high availability backup regimes and this and that and whatnot. And then at the same time have the security understanding, and hence create some of the security policies as well on top of that. And you can go and literally deploy that as one product, knowing that it's going to work. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Vikas. So Divya has a follow-up. So what would be the ideal certifications that she would have to take up in order to do so? So basically for AI and marketing, what would be the ideal certifications that you suggest?
So I am actually, I'm interpreting from Divya's question that, Divya is coming from a marketing background. So I personally would not go a lot into marketing as an area itself. But I would probably think about DA100 as a starter, in terms of, DA100 basically can source the data. So, hopefully Divya is working with some of the systems which has marketing data and marketing information, for example. So sourcing can be done, some bit of modeling can be done. Advanced analytics is baked into DA100 and Power BI. So advanced analytics will also be exposed up. So some bit of predictive, some bit of advanced analytics will be available to you, Divya. So DA100 probably is a good start point. But if you think that, okay, I have done that and I have sourced my data and I've created a good data model and I've created my good reports and dashboards and it's being collaborated and shared with the business and they're liking it, I do want to inject very specific AI solution. And for that, I need to create my own AI models and have that orchestrated and automated. Then I'll probably take AI 100 as my next step in my knowledge maturity. So DA100 and then hopefully AI 100 if you really want to go to that path.
Right. So there's a lot of thank yous for you, Vikas, in the chat as well. So I think we are on time. I don't see any more questions. We can wait for a couple of more seconds. If somebody wants to ask another question, please post it in the chat window. All right. I think we don't have more questions. So thanks a lot, Vikas, for conducting this session and coming here and talking about these many roles and giving us such great advice. It's been really a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Namrata. It's really been good. I think you all have been a good audience, very engaging as well. And I do hope that you can leverage the training and voucher offers that we just talked about. And at the same time, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to the panelist, and we will see what we can do best for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vikas. So thank you, the audience, as well, for coming and joining us. We will be posting Vikas's LinkedIn so that you can reach out to him for any questions. We are also hiring volunteers at Women in AI India. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. We will be posting my email address in the chat window. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.